Listen, I want to tell you something. What you're about to hear will make you stop whatever you are doing, because this is the kind of story people don't forget, the kind that starts soft and then hits hard. And it all began on a day when everything was normal, until something happened. Before we continue, please like and comment where you are watching from. It was 3 months after the funeral. 3 months of waking up to an empty bed. 3 months of coffee made for one. 3 months of that deafening silence that fills a house when the person who made it a home is gone. I was 62 years old, and I felt ancient. My name is Janice Cooper, and for 40 years I was married to a man named Dale Cooper. Everyone called him Coop. He was a biker. Not the kind you see in movies with leather vests covered in patches and mean faces. No, Dale was the kind of biker who waved at every single motorcycle he passed on the road. The kind who stopped to help strangers with flat tires. The kind who came home every single night and kissed me on the forehead before doing anything else. We lived in a small town in Pennsylvania. One of those places where everybody knows everybody, and the diner on Main Street has been serving the same meatloaf recipe since 1972. Dale worked at the steel mill for 35 years. I was a teacher at the elementary school. We had a simple life, a good life. But Dale had this dream. He'd had it for as long as I'd known him. He wanted to ride his motorcycle across the entire country, coast to coast, Pennsylvania to California. He'd planned it all out. Saved money in a coffee can in the garage, mapped the whole route. He talked about it the way some people talk about heaven, like it was this beautiful, perfect thing waiting for him just around the corner. When I retire, he'd say, that's the first thing I'm doing, getting on that bike and riding until I see the Pacific Ocean. And I'd smile and nod because that's what you do when you love someone. You let them have their dreams. Dale retired on a Friday in March. The guys at the mill threw him a party. There was cake and beer, and everyone clapped when the boss gave him his watch. Dale came home that night with the biggest smile on his face. "This is it, Janice," he said. "Next month I'm doing it, the big ride." I remember exactly how he looked, standing in our kitchen. His eyes were bright. His whole face was lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. He pulled me into his arms and danced me around the kitchen, even though there was no music playing. 40 years I've been waiting for this, he whispered into my hair. 40 years. He died 2 weeks later. Heart attack. Massive. The doctor said he was gone before he hit the ground. He was in the garage getting his motorcycle ready for the trip. I found him there, lying on the concrete floor next to his bike, wrench still in his hand. The funeral was on a Tuesday. It rained. A lot of people came. The church was packed. People told me stories about Dale that made me laugh and cry at the same time. But the whole thing felt like it was happening to someone else, like I was watching it on television. After everyone left, after the casseroles stopped coming, after the phone stopped ringing with people checking on me, I was alone with the silence, and I didn't know what to do with it. My daughter Sarah called every day from Oregon, where she lived with her husband and 2 kids. She wanted me to come stay with them. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone right now," she'd say. But I couldn't leave. Leaving felt like giving up, like admitting that Dale was really gone. So I stayed in our house and tried to figure out how to be a person without him. One Saturday morning, I was cleaning out the garage. I'd been avoiding it. That's where he died, and going in there felt like walking into a tomb. But the lawnmower was in there, and the grass was getting high, and the neighbors were starting to look at our yard the way people look at houses where something bad happened. The garage still smelled like him. Oil and leather and that cologne he wore, Old Spice. Such a simple smell, but it hit me like a truck. I stood in the doorway for 5 whole minutes, just breathing it in, trying not to fall apart. His motorcycle was still there, a 1983 Harley Davidson Softail, black and chrome. He'd had it since before we got married. He loved that bike more than anything, except me. He always said he loved it more than anything except me. I walked over to it slowly, running my hand along the seat. The leather was smooth and cool under my fingers. There were saddlebags on either side. I'd seen them 1,000 times but never really looked at them. I opened the right one first. It was full of tools and rags and a flashlight. The left one had a rain suit and some bungee cords. But underneath all that, folded up neat and careful, was a map. I pulled it out and spread it on Dale's workbench. It wasn't just any map, it was the map. His route. The trip he'd planned for 40 years. The entire thing was drawn in red marker, a line that snaked across the country from Pennsylvania all the way to the California coast. There were notes written in his handwriting all along the route, little stars marking places he wanted to stop, towns he wanted to see, diners he wanted to eat at. I stood there staring at that map for I don't know how long, and then I saw it. In the corner of the map, written in Dale's careful block letters, was a note that made my heart stop. To Janice, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. Don't be sad, baby. I had a good life. I had you. That was always the real journey. But if you ever feel lost without me, follow this map. You'll understand everything, I promise. All my love, forever and always, Coop. I read it 3 times. Then I sat down on the garage floor and cried harder than I'd cried at the funeral, because that was so Dale. To think about me even in his dream, to leave me a message, to give me something to follow. But I was 62 years old. I'd never ridden a motorcycle by myself in my life. Dale had taken me on rides plenty of times, but I was always the passenger, holding on to him, trusting him to get us where we needed to go. The idea of doing it alone was terrifying. I folded the map back up and put it in the house. I put it in the kitchen drawer where we kept the important papers, and I tried to forget about it, but I couldn't. Every morning I'd wake up and the first thing I'd think about was that map, that red line across the country. Those little notes in Dale's handwriting, that message to me. If you ever feel lost without me, follow this map. I was lost. God, I was so lost. 2 weeks went by, then 3. My daughter called, and I could hear the worry in her voice. Mom, you sound tired. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? I lied and told her I was fine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 2 a.m. and went to the kitchen. I took out the map and spread it on the table. I traced the red line with my finger, following Dale's route. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, thousands of miles. What was I thinking? I was a 62-year-old widow who taught 2nd grade for 35 years. I didn't know how to ride a motorcycle. I didn't know how to navigate by myself. I'd get lost. I'd get hurt. It was crazy. But then I thought about Dale, about how he'd spent 40 years dreaming about this trip, about how he'd died with a wrench in his hand getting ready, about how he'd never got to see those places he'd marked with stars, never got to eat at those diners, never got to stand on the California coast and look out at the Pacific Ocean. And I thought about his note. You'll understand everything, I promise. What did that mean? What would I understand? I sat at that kitchen table until the sun came up, and when the light started coming through the window, I made a decision. I was going to do it. I was going to take Dale's ashes, and I was going to get on that motorcycle, and I was going to follow that map all the way to California. I was going to complete the journey he never got to finish, even if it killed me. Even if I was terrified, even if everyone thought I'd lost my mind. If you're watching this and you've ever lost someone you love, someone who was your whole world, hit that like button, because you know what I'm talking about. You know what it feels like to wake up and have to figure out how to keep breathing when the person who made you want to breathe is gone. Drop a comment and tell me their name. I want to know. I want to remember them with you. The next morning, I called Sarah. Mom, she answered on the first ring. She always did. Is everything okay? I need to tell you something, I said, and I need you to not try to talk me out of it. There was a pause. Mom, what's going on? I'm taking a trip. A trip? Mom, that's great. Are you coming here? The kids would love to see you. No, I said. "I'm taking Dad's motorcycle. I'm going to ride it to California. I'm going to finish his route." The silence on the other end of the phone was so long I thought maybe we'd gotten disconnected. "Mom," Sarah finally said, and her voice had that careful tone people use when they're talking to someone they think might be having a breakdown. "Mom, you don't know how to ride a motorcycle." "I can learn. It's thousands of miles." "I know. Mom, this is crazy." "I know that too." Another long silence. "Please don't try to stop me," I said quietly. "I have to do this, Sarah. I don't expect you to understand, but I have to." I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then I heard her sigh. My daughter. My smart, beautiful daughter who looked so much like Dale it sometimes hurt to look at her. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay, Mom, if this is what you need to do, then do it. But promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll call me every single day. Promise me you'll turn around if it gets too hard." "I promise." We talked for another hour. She made me promise things I knew I might not be able to keep, but I promised anyway because she needed to hear it. When we hung up, I felt both relieved and guilty at the same time. The next few weeks were a blur. I went to the DMV and got my motorcycle license. The instructor was a guy in his 30s named Tommy who looked at me like I'd grown a second head when I told him I wanted to learn to ride. But he taught me anyway, and I learned. It was terrifying at first. The bike felt huge and heavy, and I was sure I was going to drop it or crash it or die. But slowly, little by little, I got the hang of it. I practiced in empty parking lots. I rode up and down our quiet street. I took short trips around town. And every time I got on that bike, I felt Dale with me, like he was sitting right behind me, his arms around my waist, whispering in my ear that I could do this. I got my license on the first try. I packed light: clothes, toiletries, the map, and a small wooden box that held Dale's ashes. I called Sarah the night before I left. "I'm leaving tomorrow," I told her. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I love you, Mom. Dad would be so proud of you." That made me cry. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I got dressed in jeans and the leather jacket Dale had bought me years ago. I put my hair in a braid. I put the wooden box with Dale's ashes in one saddlebag. The map went in the other. I stood in our driveway as the sun came up, looking at our house. The house where we'd raised Sarah. The house where we'd had 40 years of breakfasts and dinners and fights and makeups and laughter and tears and everything that makes a life. "Okay, Dale," I whispered. "Let's go see what you wanted me to understand." I got on the bike, started the engine, and I rode away. The first day was hard. Everything was hard. My hands hurt from gripping the handlebars. My back ached. I was scared every single second. Every time a truck passed me, I was sure I was going to die. Every time I had to merge or change lanes, my heart felt like it was going to explode. But I kept going. I followed the red line on Dale's map. I stopped when I got tired. I ate at diners. I stayed at cheap motels. And every night before I went to sleep, I'd take out the wooden box and I'd talk to Dale like he was sitting right there in the room with me. "We made it to Ohio today," I'd say. Or, "We're in Illinois now. You would have loved this sunset." 3 weeks into the trip, I was somewhere in Missouri. It was late afternoon and I was tired. My whole body hurt. I pulled into a rest stop to stretch my legs and use the bathroom. When I came back out, there was an older man standing next to Dale's bike. He was probably in his 70s with a long gray beard and a leather vest covered in patches. He was running his hand along the bike's gas tank, looking at it the way someone looks at an old friend. "This is a beautiful bike," he said when he saw me approaching. "'83 Softdale, right?" "Right," I said. He looked at me with these bright blue eyes. "You ride alone?" "I do now." Something in my voice must have told him not to ask more about that because he just nodded. "I used to ride with a guy who had a bike just like this one," he said. "Back in the day. We rode together for years. His name was Dale Cooper. Called him Coop. You ever run across him in your travels?" My heart stopped. I stared at this stranger, this old man with his gray beard and bright blue eyes, and I couldn't breathe. Coop was my husband, I finally managed to say. He died 3 months ago. The man's face went pale. He took a step back like I'd slapped him. Janice? He said. You're Janice? How do you know my name? Because Coop talked about you every single day of his life because... He stopped and ran his hand over his face. Oh God, I didn't know he'd passed. Nobody told me. We stood there in that rest stop parking lot, two strangers connected by a man we'd both loved, and neither of us knew what to say. Finally, the man spoke again. My name is Frank Morrison. Coop and I rode together for 15 years. Before you two got married, we traveled all over. We were like brothers. I'd never heard Dale mention anyone named Frank Morrison. I don't understand, I said. Dale never? We had a falling out, Frank said quietly. Long time ago. Right before your wedding, actually. We said some things. Stupid things. Pride got in the way. We stopped talking. I've regretted it every day since. He looked at the bike again, and I saw tears in his eyes. Where are you headed? He asked. California, I said. I'm following his route, the trip he always wanted to take. I'm finishing it for him. Frank was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Janice, he said slowly, can I ask you something? Did Coop ever tell you about the summer of 1979? What about it? Frank's face changed. He looked sad and scared, and something else I couldn't identify. Maybe I shouldn't say anything, he muttered. Maybe it's not my place. Frank, I stepped closer to him. What are you talking about? What happened in 1979? He met my eyes. Your husband wasn't just planning a cross-country trip, he said quietly. He was planning to visit people, specific people in specific places, people from his past, people he needed to... Frank trailed off. Janice, there are things about Coop you don't know, things he never told you, and if you follow that route, if you stop at the places he marked, you're going to find out what they are. A chill ran down my spine. What kind of things? But Frank was already walking away, heading toward his own motorcycle parked nearby. Frank, wait, I called after him. What are you talking about? What didn't Dale tell me? He stopped and turned back. You'll find out soon enough. His first stop was going to be Topeka, Kansas. There's a woman there named Helen Rodriguez. If you're brave enough to meet her, she'll tell you everything. He got on his bike and started the engine. Frank, please. I'm sorry, Janice, he said over the rumble of the engine. I'm sorry for what you're about to learn. But maybe it's better this way. Maybe you need to know. And then he rode away, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding and my mind racing and the terrible, creeping feeling that the man I'd been married to for 40 years might have been a complete stranger. Like and subscribe if you want to find out what Janice discovers. Drop a comment telling me, would you keep going? Or would you turn around and go home? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in a motel room somewhere outside Kansas City, staring at Dale's map spread out on the bed, looking at the star he'd drawn over Topeka, Kansas. Helen Rodriguez, a woman my husband had marked as important enough to visit on his dream trip, a woman whose name I'd never heard in 40 years of marriage. My hands were shaking. I kept picking up my phone to call Sarah, then putting it back down. What would I even say? Hey, honey. I just found out your father might have been keeping secrets from me for our entire marriage? No, I couldn't do that to her. Not until I knew what this was really about. Instead, I opened the wooden box with Dale's ashes, and I talked to him like I'd been doing every night. Except this time, I was angry. Who is Helen Rodriguez, Dale? I asked the ashes. Who is she, and why didn't you ever mention her? What else didn't you tell me? The ashes didn't answer. They never did. I thought about Frank's face, the sadness in his eyes, the way he'd said, I'm sorry for what you're about to learn. Like whatever I was going to find out was going to hurt, like it was going to change everything. Part of me wanted to turn around, Go home. Let Dale keep his secrets. We'd had a good marriage. A happy marriage. Did I really want to tear that apart now that he was gone and couldn't defend himself? But another part of me, the part that had found the courage to get on this motorcycle in the first place, that part needed to know the truth, even if it hurt. Especially if it hurt. Because if I didn't know who Dale really was, then who had I been married to all those years? I fell asleep sometime after midnight, still wearing my clothes, with the map clutched in my hand. The next morning, I got back on the bike and headed toward Topeka. The ride took most of the day. I stopped for gas and coffee. I stopped to stretch my aching back, but mostly, I just rode, following that red line on Dale's map, trying not to think about what I might find at the end of it. Topeka appeared on the horizon just as the sun was starting to set. It was a decent-sized city, bigger than I'd expected. I pulled into a gas station and asked the attendant if he knew a Helen Rodriguez. He was young, maybe 20, and he looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Ma'am, there's probably 100 Helen Rodriguezes in Topeka. You got an address?" I didn't. I sat on a bench outside the gas station and looked at the map again. Dale hadn't written an address, just the star and the name. But there was something else, a tiny note in the margin that I hadn't noticed before. It said St. Mary's with a small cross next to it. A church, maybe? A hospital? I asked the attendant again. "Is there a St. Mary's anything around here?" "Oh yeah," he said. "St. Mary's Catholic Church is over on 6th Street. Big old building, can't miss it." 20 minutes later, I was parked outside St. Mary's Catholic Church. It was beautiful. Old red brick with a tall white steeple that reached up into the darkening sky. There were lights on inside. I sat on Dale's motorcycle for a long time, just staring at those doors, trying to find the courage to walk through them. Finally, I got off the bike. My legs were stiff and my whole body hurt, but I walked up those steps anyway. I pulled open the heavy wooden door and stepped inside. The church was quiet and cool. There were candles burning near the altar. The smell of incense hung in the air. A few people were scattered in the pews, heads bowed in prayer. I stood in the back, not sure what to do next. "Can I help you?" I turned around. A woman was standing there. She was older than me, maybe 70, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a simple dress and had kind eyes. She was holding a Bible. "I'm looking for someone," I said. "A woman named Helen Rodriguez. I was told she might be connected to this church somehow." The woman's face changed, just slightly. A flicker of something, recognition maybe, crossed her features. "I'm Helen Rodriguez," she said quietly. My heart dropped into my stomach. This was her. This was the woman Dale had marked on his map. This woman with her silver hair and her Bible and her kind eyes. What did she have to do with my husband? "Can we talk?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thin and fragile. Helen looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Let's go to the parish hall. We can have privacy there." I followed her through a side door and down a hallway. The parish hall was a large room with folding tables and chairs stacked against the walls. Helen turned on a single overhead light and gestured for me to sit. We sat across from each other at one of the tables. "Who are you?" Helen asked gently. "My name is Janice Cooper. I'm the wife of Dale Cooper. He died 3 months ago." Helen's eyes filled with tears immediately. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh, Dale, no." She knew him. This woman knew my husband well enough to cry at the news of his death. "How did you know Dale?" I asked. I was trying to keep my voice steady, but it was hard. Helen wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She was quiet for so long I thought maybe she wasn't going to answer. Then she took a deep breath. "Dale saved my life," she said simply. Whatever I'd been expecting, it wasn't that. "What?" "It was 1979, Helen continued. "July. I was 18 years old and I was in trouble. Big trouble. The kind of trouble that ruins lives." She paused. "I was pregnant and unmarried and my family, my father, He was going to throw me out. Back then, in our community, it was a death sentence. I had no money, nowhere to go, no way to take care of myself or a baby. She twisted her hands together in her lap. I was going to kill myself, she said quietly. I decided. I had it all planned out. I was going to drive my car off a bridge outside of town, end it all before I brought shame to my family. My chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe properly. I was on my way there, Helen said, to the bridge. It was late at night, and my car broke down, just stopped dead on the side of the highway. I sat there crying, thinking even my car didn't want me to live. And then this motorcycle pulled up. This young man got off and asked if I needed help. Dale, I whispered. Dale, she confirmed. He was maybe 22, 23 years old, riding across the country with his friend. He took one look at me and he knew something was wrong, really wrong. He didn't just fix my car. He sat with me on the side of that highway for 3 hours while I told him everything I was planning to do, and he talked me out of it. Tears were streaming down Helen's face now. He gave me money, she said. Every dollar he had saved for his trip. He gave it all to me. He said, "You're gonna need this more than I need to see California." He helped me find a place to stay, a home for unwed mothers 2 towns over. He checked on me every few weeks while I was there. When my daughter was born, he was the first person to hold her after me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. After I had the baby, I placed her for adoption. Helen continued. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but Dale helped me through it. He said it was the bravest choice I could make, to give her a chance at a better life than I could give her at 18 with no job and no family support. She looked at me with those kind, tear-filled eyes. Dale changed everything for me. He saved my life that night, and then he helped me build a new one. I went back to school, got my degree, became a teacher, met my husband, had 2 more children. I've had a beautiful life, Janice, and it's all because of Dale. I was crying now, too, silently, tears just running down my face. Why didn't he tell me? I asked. Why didn't he ever mention you? He made me promise not to tell anyone, Helen said. He said he didn't do it for recognition or credit. He said he did it because it was the right thing to do. And he made me promise that I wouldn't try to find him or contact him unless... She stopped. Unless what? Unless he came back, Helen said. He told me that someday when the time was right, he'd come back through Topeka, and when he did, I could repay the favor. Repay it how? Helen reached into her pocket and pulled out an old photograph. She slid it across the table to me. It was a picture of a young girl, maybe 16 or 17. She had dark hair and a bright smile. She was wearing a graduation gown. This is my daughter, Helen said softly. My first daughter, the one I placed for adoption. Her name is Maria. She found me 5 years ago. We have a relationship now, a good one. I looked at the photograph, confused about why Helen was showing me this. Dale knew I'd placed her for adoption, Helen continued. But what he didn't know, what I never got to tell him, was that before I left her at the adoption agency, I gave her something, a letter, explaining everything. And in that letter, I told her about the man on the motorcycle who saved both our lives. I told her that if she ever wanted to thank him, his name was Dale Cooper, and he lived in Pennsylvania. My hands started shaking. 3 months ago, Helen said, Maria called me. She said a woman had contacted her, a woman doing genealogy research who'd traced her biological family. Maria wanted to know if she should meet her. I told her yes. I told her that family, even complicated family, is important. Helen leaned forward. Janice, Dale wasn't just coming to Topeka to see me. He was coming to meet Maria. She'd written to him last year, sent the letter to your house. Did you ever see a letter from someone named Maria Rodriguez? My mind raced back. Last year? Had there been a letter? I sorted the mail every day, but Dale got correspondence sometimes that I didn't pay attention to. Bills, catalogs, magazines. I don't know, I said honestly. I might not have noticed. Maria told me she explained everything in the letter, Helen said. She told him she was the baby he'd helped save. She told him she wanted to meet him, to thank him. She said Dale wrote back and told her he'd come see her this spring, that he was planning a cross-country trip, and he'd make Topeka his first stop. The pieces were falling into place now. Dale's trip wasn't just about seeing the country. It was about seeing people, connecting with people from his past. "Where is Maria now?" I asked. "She lives here in Topeka. She's a nurse, has a family of her own. Helen smiled through her tears. "She's wonderful, Janice. Dale would have loved her." "Can I meet her?" Helen looked surprised. "You want to?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Dale wanted to meet her, so I want to meet her for him." Helen nodded. She pulled out her phone and made a call. I could only hear one side of the conversation, but I heard her say, "She's here and Dale's wife, and yes, tonight." When she hung up, she said, "Maria can be here in 20 minutes." We sat in that parish hall waiting. Helen made us tea. We didn't talk much. I think we were both lost in our own thoughts, our own memories of Dale. When Maria arrived, I understood immediately why Helen had kept her photograph. Maria looked exactly like the picture, just older. She was in her 40s now, with that same dark hair and bright smile. But when she saw me, her smile faded into something more uncertain. "Mrs. Cooper," she said, "I'm so sorry about Dale. When I heard he'd passed," her voice broke. "I never got to thank him." I stood up, and before I knew what I was doing, I pulled this woman, this stranger, into a hug. "You can thank him now," I whispered. "I'm listening for him." Maria hugged me back tight. We stood there holding each other, two women connected by a man who'd been better than either of us had fully understood. When we finally sat down, Maria told me her story. She told me about growing up with her adoptive family, about finding Helen, about writing to Dale and getting his letter back, a letter that, she said, was the kindest thing anyone had ever written to her. "He told me he was proud of me," Maria said, crying. "He said that every day since he met my mother, he'd wondered what happened to me, if I was okay, if I was happy. And when I told him I was both, he said it was the best news he'd heard in 40 years. I thought about Dale sitting in our kitchen, reading Maria's letter, writing back to her, keeping this beautiful secret, planning to finally meet the child he'd helped save, and never getting the chance. "I have something for you," Maria said. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "Dale sent this with his letter. He said it was for me. But only if he didn't make it to meet me in person. He said if something happened to him before the trip, I should give it to you." My hands trembled as I took the envelope. My name was written on it in Dale's handwriting. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded in half. I unfolded it and read, "Janice, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to finish what I started. I'm sorry for keeping secrets. I never told you about Maria and Helen because I didn't know how. How do you explain to your wife that you gave away all your money to a stranger when you were supposed to be saving for your future together? How do you explain that you kept in touch with another woman, even if it was completely innocent, for 40 years? I was afraid you'd be hurt, or angry. Or that you'd think I loved you less because I cared about them too. But the truth is, saving Helen and Maria that night changed my life. It made me believe in the kind of man I wanted to be, the kind of man who deserved someone like you. Every good thing I ever did in my life, I did because Helen and Maria taught me that one moment of kindness can change everything. One choice can save a life. I love you, Janice. I've loved you every single day since I met you. And if you're following this map, if you're meeting these people, it's because I want you to know the whole truth about who I was, the good and the bad, the secrets and the sorrows. Don't stop now. Keep going. There's more to learn, more people to meet, more pieces of me to find. I promise it will all make sense in the end. All my love, forever and always. Coop. I read the letter 3 times. Then I pressed it against my chest and let myself cry. Really cry. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep inside, where all the grief and confusion and love live together in a tangled mess. Helen and Maria sat with me. They didn't try to stop me or comfort me. They just let me feel it. When I finally stopped, when I could breathe again, I looked at them. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you for telling me this, for showing me this side of Dale." "Thank you for coming," Helen said, "for finishing his journey." "Will you keep going?" Maria asked. "To the other places on his map?" I looked at Dale's letter again. "Keep going," he'd written. "There's more to learn." "Yes," I said. "I'm going to keep going." We stayed at the church for another hour. Maria showed me pictures of her family, her husband, her 3 kids. Helen told me stories about the work she did at the church now, helping other young women who found themselves in impossible situations. "Dale inspired all of this," Helen said, gesturing around the parish hall. "This program, this outreach, it's all because of what he did for me. He showed me that one person can make a difference. So now I try to make a difference too." When it was time to leave, Maria walked me out to the parking lot where Dale's motorcycle was waiting. "That was his bike?" she asked, running her hand along the seat the same way Frank had done. "It was. Now it's mine." "He'd be proud of you," Maria said, finishing this for him. "I'm not doing it for him anymore," I said, surprising myself with the words. "I'm doing it for me. I need to know who he really was. All of him. Not just the parts he showed me." Maria nodded. "Then keep going and be ready. Because if Dale marked other people on that map the way he marked my mom, you're going to learn things you never expected." She gave me her phone number and made me promise to call her when I reached California. Then she hugged me one more time and went back inside. I stood alone in the parking lot as the stars came out. I looked up at them, thinking about Dale, about the young man who'd given away all his money to save a stranger, about the husband who'd kept that secret for 40 years. Who else was on this map? What other lives had he touched? What other secrets was I going to uncover? I opened the saddlebag and looked at the next star on the route, Colorado, a town called Cedar Ridge. And written next to it in Dale's handwriting was a single word that made my blood run cold. Tommy. Tommy. That was a name I knew. Tommy had been Dale's best friend in high school. They'd been inseparable. And then, right after graduation, something had happened between them. They'd had some kind of falling out. Dale never talked about it. Whenever I'd ask what happened to Tommy, Dale would just shake his head and say, "That's ancient history, Jan. Doesn't matter now." But apparently it did matter. Matter enough that Tommy was marked on this map. Matter enough that Dale had planned to stop and see him. What had happened between Dale and Tommy? What had ended their friendship? And more importantly, was I ready to find out? I got on the bike, started the engine, and as I pulled out of the parking lot heading west toward Colorado, I couldn't shake the feeling that Helen and Maria had been the easy part of this journey. Whatever I was riding toward now felt different, felt darker. Felt like the kind of secret that doesn't save lives, the kind that destroys them. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what do you think happened between Dale and Tommy? And would you keep going if you were Janice, or would some secrets be better left buried? Hit that subscribe button because what happened next is going to change everything you thought you knew about this story. It took me 4 days to reach Cedar Ridge, Colorado. 4 days of riding through Kansas and into Colorado. 4 days of watching the flat plains slowly give way to hills, then mountains. 4 days of thinking about Tommy, trying to remember everything Dale had ever said about him, which wasn't much. Which was the problem. I knew they'd grown up together. I knew they'd been best friends all through school. I'd seen pictures in Dale's old yearbooks. 2 young men with their arms around each other's shoulders, big smiles on their faces. Brothers in everything but blood. That's what Dale's mother had told me once. And then, nothing. After high school graduation, Tommy had disappeared from Dale's life completely, like he'd never existed. Whenever I'd asked about it over the years, Dale would get this look on his face, sad and closed off. We grew apart. he'd say, or people change, or sometimes friendships just end, Jan. But I never believed him. You don't just stop talking to someone who was like a brother to you, not without a reason, not without something big happening. Now I was about to find out what that something was. Cedar Ridge was a small mountain town, the kind of place that probably looked like a postcard in the winter with snow on the peaks and smoke coming from chimneys. But it was spring now, and everything was green and alive. The main street had maybe 10 buildings, a post office, a general store, a bar called the Rusty Nail, a diner. I pulled into the parking lot of the diner and sat on the bike for a minute, trying to calm my racing heart. Dale's map didn't have an address for Tommy, just the name of the town. I was going to have to ask around. Inside the diner, it was warm and smelled like coffee and bacon. There were a few people scattered at tables. A waitress behind the counter looked up when I walked in. She was young, maybe 30, with blonde hair and a ponytail. "Sit anywhere, hun," she called out. "I'll be right with you." I sat at the counter. My legs were shaking. From the ride, I told myself, just from the ride. The waitress came over with a pot of coffee. "You look like you could use this," she said, pouring me a cup without asking. "Thank you." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. "I'm actually looking for someone. A man named Tommy. I don't know his last name, but he would be in his 60s now. He grew up in Pennsylvania, but might have moved here a long time ago." The waitress's friendly expression changed. Just slightly. Her smile got smaller. "Tommy Brennan?" she asked carefully. "Maybe. I'm not sure." "Why are you looking for him?" There was something in her tone, something protective. "He was friends with my husband," I said. "My husband passed away a few months ago. Before he died, he wanted to reconnect with Tommy." "I'm trying to finish what he started." The waitress studied my face for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Tommy lives up on Ridge Road, about 3 miles north of town. Big cabin with a green roof. You can't miss it." "Thank you. But listen," she said, leaning in closer. "Tommy's a good man, one of the best, but he's been through a lot. Be gentle with him, okay?" I didn't know what that meant, but I nodded anyway. I drank my coffee and ate some toast I didn't really want, just to give myself time to think. Then I paid my bill, got back on the bike, and headed north. The waitress was right. The cabin was easy to find. It sat back from the road, surrounded by pine trees. It was beautiful in a rustic way, logs and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. There was a truck parked out front and smoke coming from the chimney. I parked the bike and walked up to the porch. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I raised my hand to knock, then stopped. What was I going to say? "Hi, I'm the wife of the man who destroyed your friendship 45 years ago. Want to tell me what he did?" Before I could knock, the door opened. A man stood there. He was tall, with gray hair and a thick beard. He wore flannel and jeans. His face was weathered and lined, but his eyes were clear and blue. He looked at me with surprise. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Are you Tommy Brennan?" "I am. My name is Janice Cooper. I think you knew my husband, Dale Cooper." The color drained from Tommy's face. He grabbed the door frame like his legs had stopped working. "Dale," he whispered. "Jesus, Dale." "He passed away 3 months ago," I said quickly. "I'm sorry to just show up like this, but he had you marked on his map. He was planning to come see you, and I'm trying to understand why. I'm trying to understand what happened between you two." Tommy stared at me for what felt like forever. Then he stepped back and opened the door wider. "You better come in," he said quietly. The inside of the cabin was warm and comfortable. There was a fire going in a stone fireplace, books everywhere, photographs on the walls. I followed Tommy into the living room and we sat down, him in a worn leather chair, me on a couch that had seen better days. Tommy didn't say anything at first. He just sat there looking at his hands. "How did you find me?" he finally asked. "Dale left a map, a route he'd planned to take across the country. You were marked on it. Cedar Ridge, Colorado." That's all it said. Tommy's jaw tightened. He was really coming here? Yes. After all these years, he was finally going to show up. There was anger in Tommy's voice, old anger. The kind that's been sitting inside someone for decades, getting harder and sharper with time. What happened between you two? I asked. Dale never told me. He wouldn't talk about it. Tommy laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course he wouldn't. That would have meant admitting what he did. My stomach dropped. What did he do, Tommy? Tommy stood up and walked to the fireplace. He stared into the flames for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. We grew up together, Dale and me. My house, his house, they were right next to each other. We were best friends from the time we were 5 years old, did everything together. We were going to join the military together after high school. We had it all planned out. We were going to see the world, have adventures, then come home and start a business together. We had dreams, you know? He turned to look at me. And then, the summer after graduation, everything fell apart because of a girl. My heart sank. Of course it was about a girl. Her name was Rebecca, Tommy continued. Rebecca Hayes. She was beautiful and smart and funny. And I was in love with her. Head over heels, stupid in love with her. We'd been dating for 2 years. I was going to marry her. I'd even bought a ring, a cheap one because I didn't have much money, but I'd saved for months. He sat back down and I could see the pain on his face even after all these years. I told Dale about the ring, showed it to him. Asked him to be my best man when I proposed. He said yes, he was happy for me, or at least I thought he was. Tommy's hands clenched into fists. 2 weeks before I was going to propose, Rebecca broke up with me, out of nowhere. She said she didn't love me anymore, said she'd made a mistake, said she was sorry. I was devastated. I couldn't understand what had happened, what had changed. He looked at me with eyes full of old hurt. And then I found out she was pregnant and the father was Dale. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. What? I managed to whisper. Dale and Rebecca had been sleeping together behind my back for months, Tommy said. His voice was flat now, emotionless, like he'd told this story so many times in his head that all the feeling had been wrung out of it. While I was making plans to marry her, while I was saving for a ring, while I was telling Dale every detail of my relationship with her, he was betraying me. They both were. Tommy, Rebecca told me everything after we broke up, Tommy interrupted. She felt guilty, I guess. She said it had started at a party. She and Dale had both been drinking. One thing led to another. She said it didn't mean anything. But then it kept happening, over and over, and she fell in love with him. Tears were streaming down my face. This couldn't be true. Dale wouldn't do that. Not the man I'd known. Not the man who'd saved Helen and Maria. Not the man who'd been faithful to me for 40 years. When I confronted Dale, Tommy said, you know what he said? He said he was sorry. He said he never meant for it to happen. He said he loved her and he was going to marry her and raise the baby. He asked me to forgive him. Did you? Tommy's laugh was bitter. No. I told him I never wanted to see him again. I told him he was dead to me. And then I left. I joined the military by myself, did 2 tours in Vietnam, came back and moved out here, as far away from Pennsylvania as I could get. I built a new life, got married to a good woman, had kids, got divorced, made peace with my past. He looked at me with something like pity in his eyes, but I never forgave him, and I never forgot what he did. I was shaking. What happened to Rebecca and the baby? Tommy's expression softened just slightly. She lost the baby, miscarriage, 3 months into the pregnancy, and after that, Dale didn't want her anymore. He broke up with her, told her it had been a mistake, left her with nothing. No baby, no fiancé, no best friend. She moved away about a year later. I heard she got married eventually, had a family. I hope she's happy. I felt sick, actually sick, like I might throw up right there on Tommy's couch. This wasn't the Dale I knew. The Dale I knew was kind and faithful and honest. The Dale I knew would never do something like this, would never hurt someone he loved, would never betray his best friend. But Tommy had no reason to lie, and the pain on his face was real. You can't fake that kind of hurt. "Why was he coming to see you?" I asked quietly. "After all these years, why now?" Tommy shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe he wanted to apologize. Maybe he wanted closure before he died. Maybe..." He stopped and looked at me carefully. "You didn't know, did you?" "About any of this?" "No." "Dale never told you what he did?" "He told me you two had a falling out. That's all. He never said why." Tommy ran his hand over his face. "So he kept that secret from you, too." "What do you mean, too?" "Did you know about Helen?" Tommy asked. "Helen Rodriguez." My breath caught. "You know about Helen?" "Dale told me about her, right before everything fell apart with Rebecca. He was so proud of himself. Told me this whole story about saving some pregnant girl on the side of the road, giving her all his money. He thought it made him a hero." Tommy's voice was hard now. "And maybe it did. Maybe that one good thing he did makes up for all the bad. But I don't think so. I think Dale was good at making himself look like a saint while doing terrible things when no one was watching. He saved Helen's life, and then, 2 months later, he destroyed mine." I stood up. I needed to leave. I couldn't sit here anymore listening to this. It was too much. Too awful. "I'm sorry," I said. My voice was shaking. "I'm sorry for what Dale did to you. You deserved better. You deserved a real friend." Tommy stood too. "So did you," he said gently. "From what I can tell, Dale kept a lot of secrets from you." "I'm learning that." "Are you going to keep following his map?" Tommy asked. "Are there other people marked on it?" "Yes, several." "Then be careful, Janice. Because if Dale marked me after what I know about him, then the other people on that map might know even worse things. He might have been planning to make amends, sure, but he also might have been planning to make sure his secrets died with him." A chill went down my spine. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe Dale was coming to see all these people to ask them not to tell anyone what they knew. Maybe he wanted to control his own story, make sure that when he died, everyone remembered him as a hero, as a good man." Tommy walked me to the door. "Or maybe," he said quietly, "Dale really did want to apologize, to make peace, to die with a clean conscience. I don't know. I'll never know now, and neither will you." I stepped out onto the porch. The sun was starting to set, painting the mountains pink and orange. It should have been beautiful, but I couldn't see the beauty. All I could see was my entire marriage crumbling in front of me. "For what it's worth," Tommy called after me, "I'm sorry about Dale's death. I'm sorry you're going through this. And I'm sorry you had to find out this way." I turned back to look at him. "Do you think he loved me? Or was that a lie, too?" Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think Dale loved you more than he loved anyone. I think you were the one good thing he held on to after everything fell apart. I think he became a better man because of you. But you also think he was capable of terrible things." "I know he was capable of terrible things," Tommy said, "because I saw it firsthand. But maybe he changed. Maybe the Dale you knew really was different from the Dale I knew. People can change. I have to believe that, or what's the point?" I nodded. I got on the bike. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. "Janice," Tommy called out. "One more thing." "Yes?" "The next person on your map. Who is it?" I pulled out the map and looked. Utah. A town called Moab. And next to it, a woman's name. Catherine Miller. "Catherine Miller," I said. "Do you know that name?" Tommy's face went white. Actually white, like he'd seen a ghost. "Oh God," he whispered. "He was going to see Catherine. Who is she?" "She was Rebecca's best friend. She was..." Tommy stopped. He looked scared. Janice, don't go to Moab. Whatever Dale was planning with Catherine, leave it alone. Some stones are better left unturned. Why? What does Catherine know? I can't tell you. It's not my story to tell. But please, for your own sake, stop this journey here. Go home. Let Dale rest in peace. But I was already starting the engine, already pointing the bike toward the road. I can't stop now, I called back. I have to know the truth. All of it. Tommy stood on his porch watching me ride away. And as I glanced back in my mirror, I saw him pull out his phone, saw him dial a number, saw him press it to his ear with a desperate look on his face. He was calling someone, warning them I was coming. I rode until it was too dark to see the road clearly, then stopped at a motel. I sat on the edge of the bed with Dale's ashes in my lap, and I couldn't even talk to him, couldn't even be angry. I just felt hollow, empty, like someone had reached inside me and scooped out everything that made me who I was. Who was Dale Cooper? The man who saved Helen's life? Or the man who destroyed Tommy's? The faithful husband who kissed me on the forehead every single night? Or the cheater who slept with his best friend's girlfriend? Which one was real? And more terrifying, what was Catherine Miller going to tell me? What secret was so terrible that Tommy had begged me not to find out? I looked at Dale's map again, at the red line leading west, at the remaining stars marking other stops, other people, other secrets. Part of me wanted to burn the map, throw Dale's ashes in a dumpster, get on a plane and fly home and pretend this journey had never happened. But I couldn't, because I needed to know who I'd been married to for 40 years, even if the answer destroyed me, even if the truth was worse than anything I could imagine. I had to keep going. To Moab, to Catherine Miller, to whatever terrible secret was waiting for me there. I fell asleep that night with Dale's letter in my hand, the one he'd left with Maria, the one that said, "Keep going, there's more to learn, more people to meet, more pieces of me to find, more pieces, more secrets, more lies." And somewhere in the back of my mind, a question kept whispering that I couldn't silence, no matter how hard I tried. What if the worst thing Dale ever did wasn't cheating on Tommy's girlfriend? What if that was just the beginning? If you've made it this far, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me, should Janice keep going, or should some truth stay buried? Subscribe because you need to know what Catherine Miller knows. Trust me, you're not ready for what's coming next. Nobody is.